head. An ICE agent is hospitalized after the DHS says he was ambushed during a traffic stop in Minneapolis. Officials say the officer fired in self-defense after being attacked by 3 suspects. And President Trump issues a warning if state officials fail to stop protesters targeting immigration officers. Federal prosecutors charged 15 former college basketball players in an alleged betting scheme. The details on allegations against the former Division I players. U.S. forces seized another Venezuela-linked oil tanker. U.S. Southern Command said the seizure took place in the Caribbean.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump today unveiled a new framework to lower healthcare costs and drug prices for Americans. Here's the president announcing the plan.
We're calling it the Great Healthcare Plan. Instead of putting the needs of big corporations and special interests first, our plan finally puts you first and puts more money in your pocket. The government is going to pay the money directly to you. It goes to you, and then you take the money and buy your own health care. Nobody's ever heard of that before, and that's the way it is. The big insurance companies lose, and the people of our country win. This proposal locks in the massive discounts on prescription drugs that my administration is achieving through our most favored nation drug pricing agreement. Now,
the White House explains President Trump's great healthcare plan will have 4 pillars. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today promises the plan will lower healthcare costs for all Americans once it's put into practice.
So this is the second principle in the president's health care plan, lowering insurance premiums specifically and ensuring that that money is going directly back to the American people and cutting the kickbacks that then raise those premiums. So this plan, once put into legislative text and passed by Congress and sent to the president's desk, will stop sending big insurance companies billions of an extra taxpayer-funded subsidy payments and instead send that money directly to eligible Americans to allow them to buy the health insurance of their choice through, you may have heard it be referred to as health savings accounts. Whether that ends up being the actual name of such accounts, we'll have to see.
The White House says the initiative will slash prescription drug prices, reduce insurance premiums, hold big insurance companies accountable, and maximize price transparency in the American healthcare system. Trump said the plan would send money directly to the American people. President Trump criticized Obamacare for benefiting insurance companies. He said this plan would end the kickbacks to insurance brokers and corporate middlemen. The president is urging Congress to pass the framework quickly. The White House also chimed in on the violent anti-ICE protests in Minnesota. Leavitt explained President Trump's threat to use the Insurrection Act.
The Insurrection Act is a tool at the president's disposal. As you know, it has been used sparingly, but it has been used by previous presidents in American history. And I think the president's Truth Social post spoke very loud and clear to Democrats across this country, elected officials who are using their platforms to encourage violence against federal law enforcement officers, who are encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct legitimate law enforcement operations. And if you talk to any law enforcement officer, no matter what level they work at, they want to be working with their counterparts, whether that's at the federal level or the federal authorities wanting to work with their counterparts at the state and local level.
The White House criticized Democratic governors and mayors for being unwilling to work with federal law enforcement. Leavitt added that the Trump administration's goal is to remove criminal illegal immigrants off the streets. She urged Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to stop inciting the harassment and obstruction of law enforcement and cooperate with the president. And tensions escalate in Minneapolis following a violent nighttime confrontation between an ICE agent and an illegal immigrant in Minneapolis. Homeland Security says the man ambushed the agent, and the agent in turn shot him in the leg. Here's what we know.
An ICE agent is in the hospital after the Department of Homeland Security said he was ambushed by an illegal immigrant in Minneapolis. According to DHS, agents were conducting a traffic stop when the man, a Venezuelan national, fled the scene in his vehicle and crashed into a parked car. He then took off running. An officer caught up with the man when DHS says he and 2 other people began attacking the officer using a shovel and a broom handle. In a statement on X, DHS said, fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by 3 individuals, the officer fired a defensive shot to defend his life. Officials say that a bullet struck the man in the leg, and both he and the ICE officer were hospitalized. DHS says the 2 other assailants scrambled back into an apartment, but are now in custody. In a late-night news conference Wednesday, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara confirmed the shooting. He also said crowds had gathered near the scene and were attacking police officers.
The crowd is engaging in unlawful acts. They have thrown fireworks at police officers, and at multiple times, gas has been deployed. This is already a very tense situation, and we do not need this to escalate any further.
O'Hara also confirmed no one else was shot. At the same news conference, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey urged protesters to stay nonviolent. He blamed the Trump administration for escalating the situation by surging ICE into Minneapolis.
For those that have peacefully protested, I applaud you. For those that are taking the bait, you are not helping, and you are not helping the undocumented immigrants in our city.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz echoed the same sentiment, and he said ICE's actions are no longer about immigration enforcement, but in his words, a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota. In a post on X, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche defended federal agents, saying ICE operates in thousands of communities without incident, with men and women carrying out their duties to protect the public from criminal aliens, and he blamed the violence on rhetoric from Minnesota officials. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons told Fox News this week that Minnesota's sanctuary policies are what's driving the surge in federal agents. DHS, meanwhile, has been touting what it's calling Operation Metro Surge as a success. In a press release yesterday, the department said it had arrested the worst of the worst criminal illegal immigrants from Minnesota neighborhoods, including violent assailants, domestic abusers, and drug traffickers. It said it did so despite a lack of cooperation from Minnesota officials. According to DHS, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey have been responsible for releasing nearly 470 criminal illegal immigrants onto Minnesota streets in less than a year. It called on the 2 leaders Wednesday to honor ICE arrest detainers of more than 1,300 immigrants in the state's custody.
The Trump administration has until Monday to respond to Minnesota's request for a temporary injunction of ICE activity. A U.S. district judge says she will not block ICE action in the state for now. Minnesota and the Twin Cities are suing the Trump administration. They argue the federal government is usurping constitutional state powers. They also allege ICE agents are using excessive force. Judge Catherine Menendez says not imposing a preliminary injunction isn't a prejudgment. The defense didn't immediately respond to the injunction request. The Trump administration says ICE is making cities safer. President Trump praised the judge's ruling in a Truth Social post today, saying, "The great patriots of law enforcement will continue to make our country safe." And to discuss developments relating to Minnesota and tensions with federal law enforcement, joining us is Taylor Hathorn, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Center for American Safety and Security. Taylor, good afternoon. Always good to see you. So tensions are high, of course. Trump is threatening the Insurrection Act if state officials fail to stop the violence against ICE agents. How could using the Insurrection Act impact the situation on the ground, in your view?
I mean, I think we've seen that regrettably, the only way that things are getting better in this country right now is when the federal government is involved. And that makes me ill to say as a small government minded person. But the reality on the ground is that the leadership at the state and local levels in these blue states that purport sanctuary city policies are doing nothing to help themselves. You know, I've seen so many of my friends on social media the last couple of days that are just absolutely missing the mark on what is happening in these cities and with these ICE raids. And it's really disappointing the role that the leadership and the elected officials are playing in these areas to continue to incite this violence and to stir up these agitators. And the people that I really think about in this scenario are not the protesters and are also admittedly not the ICE agents. I think about the normal, average, everyday American citizen in Minneapolis who's sitting there going, what in the world is going on here?
And Taylor, what you're saying is echoed, I think, pretty closely by a post by Vice President J.D. Vance. And that post highlighted, it pointed out on X that you're only seeing chaotic ICE raids in blue sanctuary cities. That's what the vice president is saying. And he's saying that the chaos is created by leaders who promote rioting. Can you just talk a bit more about what role you think state leadership plays in all this?
Certainly. I'd like to point out that in my home states of Texas and Tennessee, both, I claim both of them, San Antonio has had over 21,000 peaceful deportations in the last 7 months. And the city of Memphis, where some of my family lives, has had about 6,000 deportations with no incident, because the law enforcement and the local leadership, even if they are Democrats, especially if they are Democrats in these states, many times are saying, look, we want this to be resolved. We want our citizens to maintain safety and security. They're not trying to get up on a podium and incite any kind of violence. You know, what the mayor said of Minneapolis today, or I believe it was yesterday, when he was talking about how, it is just not against our morals to have people come in from the outside and inflict this kind of pain on our communities. And how else do you expect Minnesotans to react? Well, why can't the same be said about when mass populace of illegal immigrants come into this country and disrupt the rule of law and the law and order that you see for many of these peaceful families in this country? And I don't understand why the mayor does not believe that the people who are law-abiding in his city are allowed and afforded the same rights as the immigrants who are there illegally.
Can you give us your view as well as to what you think the media has done about this situation, or has influenced or affected this situation?
I want to shout out a couple of people that I think have been doing a really good job. Bill Malugin from Fox News is actually one of the best reporters that I believe we have in the business right now, reporting on immigration issues in this country. And he's actually putting up good factual data and statistics so that the American people can see that the people that we are deporting are not just grandmothers, making food in, their kitchens and being picked up by these ICE agents. It is real hardened criminals, and not even just suspected criminals. They are convicted criminals. And I believe in the media, the freedom of the media. I believe the media should be asking questions, but I don't necessarily believe that it's the media's role to force a certain narrative on the viewers. And the reality is that is what is happening here in this situation and in so many other situations that we've seen. The media should be reporting the facts. And then if you want to have commentators come on like me who have opinions, who want to give their opinions for the weight that might be worth, then great. But to have legacy media come on and state that DHS or that ICE or that the federal government is doing something illegal and unconstitutional without giving any kind of validity or evidence therein, it's really dangerous. And it's causing incitement. A lot of these are going out there because they look at people on CNN and they go, well, that person on CNN I've been watching for years. And if they say it's illegal and unconstitutional, then why, of course, wouldn't it be? And so I'm going to go out there and put my life and my safety at risk and put myself in front of a car of an officer, put a shovel in my hand to try to hit an ICE officer and expect a different outcome. I blame the media so much for this. And I blame the elected officials who are sitting there showing people that they are above the law.
Okay, speaking about reporting the facts, I want to cite a report by the Epoch Times, which said Minneapolis has seen weeks of organized reports aimed at disrupting ICE operations. And that includes thousands of protesters targeting hotels where they suspected ICE agents were staying at. So these are the facts. And a Minneapolis-based activist group, Sunshine Twin Cities, or rather Sunrise Twin Cities, circulated weekly lists of hotels. Can I just ask you, where do you draw the line between peaceful protests versus obstructing federal law enforcement?
I think the line is when it no longer becomes peaceful. I mean, think about the people who work in the lobby of those hotels. Like, they're not even ICE agents. They're regular citizens working a $9 an hour job who are having to sit there and go, wow, if someone breaches these doors, I'm probably going to get hurt. That is unfair and that is unjust and that is not a peaceful protest. You know, we were talking about the Insurrection Act at the top of the hour, and I've seen so many people say, you know, this is a dictatorial move. 37% of presidents in this nation have had to invoke the Insurrection Act at one point or another. And it's not because people like me and you were going out on the street filming something on our cell phones that we disagree with, that was an overreaching and excessive force of a law enforcement officer. That is not what this is about. It is about stopping organized groups who are standing up against the federal laws that we have in this nation. If you have issue with the federal laws that are imposed in this nation, you go to your congressman. There are avenues to do that. We live in the greatest country on this earth. There is nowhere else in the world that you can go through the process of amending a law like you can in the United States of America without fearing major retribution. So go through the normal protocols. I'm not saying that that I am right about everything and that every ICE officer is doing their exact duty and that there are not misuses of power. I'm not saying that that isn't occurring. If it's occurring, record it. You know, The View talked about this the other day. Cheryl did actually a really good job on this, where she said, you should get out there. And if you see something you don't like, record it and hold them accountable and go through the proper procedures. But to get out there and start threatening people and to act like you are above the law means that you don't respect the laws of this nation. And the reality is that the laws that ICE is enforcing, the policies that ICE is enforcing, are the current laws of the nation. And if you don't like it, there are avenues to change it. But abusing and hurting other people who are carrying out the laws of this nation is not the way to go.
Yeah, that's an important point. These ICE officers are just doing their job, right? If you want to change the law, talk to lawmakers, protest to lawmakers. You don't target people who are just following
100%.
orders. Yeah.
I have a good friend of mine, ICE officer, and every day, you know, I think about him, and I know him, I know his character, and I think about what he goes through. And I actually know his politics too, and I don't think that his politics are aligned with mine. And I think about people like that who are just doing their jobs, and it makes you wonder, why do their lives not hold as much value as the immigrants that they are deporting?
Okay, well, Taylor, well said. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thanks, Don.
A top ICE official is resigning to run for Congress. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Deputy Director Madison Sheehan shared the news on social media. She said she is leaving the agency and running for Congress. She wants to represent Ohio's 9th District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Sheehan will be challenging Democratic Representative Marcy Kaptur in the November midterms. On X, Sheehan thanked the president and Secretary Noem for their leadership. She also said she was proud of the work they did to protect American families. Sheehan joined ICE early last year and is a close ally of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Federal prosecutors charged 15 former college basketball players in an alleged betting scheme. The details on allegations against the former Division I players after this break. Don't go away.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gone Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Dave's Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's enzyme fermented coffee.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
Elmo's daddy taught him that when he has a big feeling like being frustrated, humming a song can help you feel better. Love your mind.
Federal prosecutors have charged 15 former college basketball players in an alleged betting scheme. Authorities say the players and 5 other individuals aimed to rig NCAA and Chinese basketball games. The 15 athletes played basketball for Division I schools as recently as last year. Prosecutors say the other 5 individuals are fixers. This includes a former coach and a former player. Authorities describe the other 3 as gamblers, influencers, and sport handicappers. The fixers allegedly recruited the college players with bribe payments ranging from $10,000 to $30,000 per game. This comes shortly after at least 10 players received lifetime bans. That's for bets which sometimes involved their own teams and their own performances. A prominent pro-Palestine activist could face rearrest. An appeals court has ruled a lower court judge lacked the authority to release Mahmoud Khalil. The panel says the Columbia University graduate's case should have gone to an immigration court. Khalil is a legal U.S. resident whose wife and child are Americans. The Trump administration said Khalil's activism harms U.S. foreign policy. They argue that Khalil fraudulently obtained his green card by concealing multiple critical pieces of information in his application. The defense says he has freedom of speech under the Constitution. Khalil is suing the Trump administration over his previous 104-day detention. U.S. forces seized another Venezuela-linked oil tanker today, marking the 6th vessel targeted in recent weeks. U.S. Southern Command said Marines and sailors boarded the motor tanker Veronica without incident. The vessels intercepted so far have been either under U.S. sanctions or part of a shadow fleet of ships that attempt to evade sanctions. Last week, U.S. forces seized a Russian-flagged tanker that was being shadowed by a Russian submarine. On Capitol Hill, a push from Democrats to limit President Trump's directives in Venezuela fails. It was very close to passing. NTD's Melina Weisskopf tells us what changed in the final hour.
After a very close vote and Vice President J.D. Vance making his way to Congress to cast a tie-breaking vote, Democrats failed to pass their War Powers Act, aimed at curbing the Trump administration's authority in Venezuela. Ultimately, 2 Republicans who initially voted in favor of opening the debate on the act decided in the final hour to switch their vote. Those were Senators Josh Hawley and Todd Young. They both said they were reassured by Secretary of State Marco Rubio that the U.S. military is not currently in Venezuela, and that if troops are needed on the ground for a major operation at any point, the administration will come to Congress first.
The Secretary also told me directly that the administration will not put ground troops into Venezuela. They do not seek to occupy Venezuela. But his commitment to abide by the War Powers notification procedures and also the Constitution is directly responsive to my concerns.
Senator Tim Kaine, the Democrat who led the charge on this War Powers Act, said though he's disappointed it didn't pass in the end, he felt like his push opened up a pathway to more discussion around the Venezuela action.
The White House made a number of public commitments to them about Senator Rubio coming finally to do a public hearing before Foreign Relations and the need for formal authorization if any boots on the ground are needed in Venezuela. These are not sufficient for me, but these were not things that we would have had we not filed this resolution.
The resolution, if approved by Congress, would have blocked President Trump from using military force within or against Venezuela. And when it was coming down to the vote yesterday, Senator Risch called a point of order because he said the resolution did not address future military actions, only current ones. He asserted that U.S. forces are not in Venezuela currently, so the point is moot. 3 Republicans still voted with Democrats, though those are Senators Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins. The president initially criticized those Republicans who voted to advance this resolution last week, saying that none of them should be reelected. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Researchers say a Chinese cyber espionage group has targeted U.S. government officials. A cybersecurity firm uncovered the campaign. Acronis Threat Research Unit said the hackers used Venezuela-themed phishing emails in the days after the U.S. capture of dictator Nicolas Maduro. The cybersecurity firm found a zip file that was uploaded on January 5th to a publicly accessible malware analysis service. The researchers said the Chinese cyber espionage group involved is believed to be called Mustang Panda. It has a history of using leaders or headlines or key issues as a means to steal data and establish footholds in U.S. government entities. So far, it's unclear which entities have been targeted and if they were compromised either. The Department of Justice has previously said that Mustang Panda is sponsored by the Chinese communist regime. Turning now to Iran. President Trump says the repression of protesters appears to be easing up. The president said yesterday he was told the killing is stopping and the regime has no plans to execute any demonstrators. Trump told reporters the information came from what he called some very important people on the other side, but he did not name them. Iran's foreign minister, meanwhile, has publicly denied plans for hanging anti-government protesters. However, Trump still says the U.S. will watch and see what happens, saying he's been told on good authority and he hopes it's true. Iran today reopened its airspace after 5 hours amid speculation about possible U.S. military action. The Iranian government did not give an explanation for closing its airspace, but it came after President Trump's comments hinting at possible strikes to Iran should Iran start to execute protesters. The foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland say they're forming a high-level working group with the U.S. to help guide the Arctic territory's future. It comes after a White House meeting yesterday with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Though they described the meeting as constructive, the ministers say there's a fundamental disagreement with the Trump administration. Ahead of the meeting, President Trump restated his ambition of making Greenland part of the U.S. In a Truth Social post, he said the United States needs Greenland for national security, adding that it's vital for the Golden Dome the U.S. is building. During a news conference yesterday, Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen said Denmark believes the long-term security of Greenland can be ensured within the current framework. Greenland's foreign minister stressed the importance of cooperating with the U.S., but added the residents of the island do not want to be owned by the U.S. Troops from several European countries are arriving in Greenland. Before yesterday's meeting in the U.S., Greenland and Denmark said they were increasing their military presence in and around the island in cooperation with NATO allies. Germany, France, Sweden, Norway, and the Netherlands have all said they're sending military staff to begin preparations for larger drills later this year. In a statement today, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said there was agreement within NATO that, quote, a strengthened presence in the Arctic is crucial for European and North American security. The scale of the planned European military buildup has not been made public, but initial developments appear small. French authorities said about 15 soldiers were already in Greenland for a military exercise. Germany will deploy a reconnaissance team of 13 personnel today. Poland, on the other hand, said it will not send soldiers to Greenland.
I mean, a conflict or an attempt to take over the territory of a country that is a NATO member by another NATO member state, and what's more, it's the United States, well, That would be the end of the world as we know it, which has guaranteed our security for decades.
President Trump has threatened to use the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. What are the legal conditions that needs to be met to allow presidents to use it? More news after this break.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
I need to sell my house. Now, there are a lot of places that claim to know how much it's worth, but they don't really know my house or my neighborhood, and they definitely don't show me all my options. That's where HomeLight comes in. I just answer a few questions, and HomeLight gives me a side-by-side comparison of my options, personalized for my needs. And they'll show me what verified buyers will pay for my house right now. It's easy, and it's free. No matter how you choose to sell your home, selling starts at HomeLight. Get started today at HomeLight.com.
President Trump has threatened to use the Insurrection Act in Minnesota following an attack on an ICE agent. DHS says the agent was ambushed by an illegal immigrant and hospitalized. Joining us to discuss is Andrew Arthur, fellow in law and policy at the Center for Immigration Studies and former immigration judge. So, Andrew, good afternoon. To start off, maybe you can explain for us simply what is the Insurrection Act and what are the legal conditions that need to be met to allow a president to use it?
So the Insurrection Act actually dates back to 1807. It's been utilized about 30 times in American history, most recently in 1992 during the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles. But Presidents Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Lyndon Johnson all used the Insurrection Act in order to enforce the civil rights laws. And President Reagan also used it in response to a prison riot in Atlanta. What it does is it allows the president to call up the militia, in this instance, the National Guard or the regular forces of the United States, whenever any assemblage or group of people makes it impossible to enforce immigration law otherwise, or to enforce federal law otherwise. So those are the conditions, and the Supreme Court has been very liberal with respect to the interpretation of that. They largely leave it to the executive branch to determine whether it's appropriate and when it's appropriate to utilize that authority to call up the troops in order to protect federal officers who are performing federal duties.
Okay, so on that last part, are you saying that it's rather lenient, legally speaking, that these conditions need to be met to use the act? So the legal bar is not that high.
No, the Supreme Court has regularly deferred to the executive branch when it's appropriate and how it's appropriate to use the Insurrection Act. So, yeah, I mean, this is one of those powers that the president has for political reasons. It really hasn't been used a lot in the last 34, hadn't been used at all in the last 34 years. But it is one of those powers that the president has to ensure that federal law can be enforced.
Okay, so Trump says if officials in Minnesota don't stop the agitators and insurrectionists from attacking ICE, he will invoke the act. Is that justification enough?
So, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It all depends on what the situation on the ground in Minnesota is. I haven't been to Minneapolis in a number of years, but one thing that I do see is that I see active, organized groups of people who are actively attempting to impede ICE officers. There have been ramming attacks in Minneapolis where people have used cars to bump into federal officers. We saw a large mob of people attack a hotel that it believed that ICE officers were in. And, you know, just yesterday we had Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry talking about how his constituents had been asking him to turn the cops out so that they could fight ICE in the streets. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is a situation we haven't had in immigration enforcement ever, and we haven't had in United States law, certainly since, the federal government was attempting to impose desegregation in the South.
Okay, so those are good points, but here's another point. Usually the use of the Insurrection Act is at a governor's request. Is it allowed to be invoked against the governor's wishes?
Absolutely. And, when we talk about Lyndon Johnson, when we talk about John Kennedy, and when we talk about Dwight Eisenhower, all of them used it against the wishes of governors in southern states that didn't want enforcement of Brown versus the Board of Education and other civil rights acts. So, yeah, I mean, if you have defiance of federal authority in a state, that's one of the things that the founders created the Insurrection Act to address. We have one federal law, and it needs to be applied uniformly across the United States without favor or faction.
Okay, can it be argued that the Insurrection Act is not needed because Trump can simply pull out the federal agents from the state, or does upholding immigration law on the federal government's part play into this?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, Don. In fact, we had an opinion that came out of the Office of Legal Counsel, which is, essentially the law firm within the Department of Justice, in which they talked about the duty that ICE officers and other immigration officers have to enforce the immigration laws as relate to individuals who have entered the United States illegally. Then, last January, we had Congress pass the Lake and Riley Act. And part of the Lake and Riley Act was a restatement by Congress that Congress wants to have criminal aliens taken into custody. When we look at the people who have been arrested in Minneapolis, there's a huge number of people who have committed crimes, up to and including murder and sexual abuse of children, that are being arrested. So Congress literally less than a year ago said, we want those criminals off the street. And today, government officials in Minnesota are attempting to impede ICE from doing so. I mean, it couldn't be any clearer than that.
Andrew, just one final thing. Vice President Vance highlighted on a point on X this week that you're only seeing chaotic ICE raids in blue sanctuary city states. What is your position on this? Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Don. And this is a crucial point. ICE doesn't want to go into those neighborhoods looking for murderers. They don't want to go looking for child rapists in those neighborhoods. They would prefer that the state hand those individuals over to them at the time that those individuals complete their sentences at the state or local level. In fact, that's exactly what the Immigration and Nationality Act says it's supposed to do. But 15 days after Donald Trump became president again, Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, issued an opinion letter that said that no county in Minnesota could hand over criminals directly from custody to ICE, that it couldn't honor the detainers that ICE was attempting to use. Part of the reason, Don, that we don't see, riots like this taking place in Texas or Florida or Georgia or Tennessee is because those states all assist ICE in handing those criminals over. They don't have to go into the neighborhoods. They have them and they can move them out of the country after they receive due process.
Okay, well, Andrew, strong arguments today. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you so much, Don. It's good talking to you.
President Trump is taking sweeping action on trade and labor, signing executive orders to secure critical mineral supply chains and impose new tariffs on certain imported computer chips. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the moves, which the White House says are aimed at protecting national security, boosting domestic production, and preventing a major rail strike in New York.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much.
President Trump signed an executive order yesterday aimed at bolstering U.S. control over critical supply chains. The move follows a review of critical mineral supplies, which determined that present quantities and circumstances of imports threaten to impair national security. It establishes a formal process for the country to secure reliable global sources of such minerals and related products. The White House says critical minerals are vital to the defense, energy, and manufacturing industries. Despite increasing demand, critical mineral production in the U.S. has been declining. President Trump also signed an executive order imposing a 25% tariff on semiconductors imported into the U.S. that are not used domestically. The White House says the tariff applies to chips not used in U.S. artificial intelligence or computing infrastructure, including those transshipped through the U.S. to other countries. The move is part of a national security investigation into semiconductor imports and supply chain risks. The White House says the United States' capacity to produce semiconductors and their derivative products is insufficient to meet domestic demand. This has led the United States to be dependent on foreign sources. Semiconductors are essential to the United States' economic, industrial, and military strength. President Trump also signed an executive order appointing a new emergency board to mediate a rail labor dispute in New York in an effort to avoid a possible strike. The dispute involves the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and Long Island Railroad unions, with about 300,000 daily passengers potentially impacted if talks fail. This is the second mediation board after the first failed to secure an agreement on wage increases. The new board will begin work tomorrow, with both sides given 120 days to reach a deal before a strike or lockout becomes possible. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Critical minerals is the focus of a new bipartisan bill. Lawmakers introduced legislation to create a $2.5 billion stockpile of critical minerals. The aim is to stabilize prices and strengthen domestic mining and refining. Lawmakers say the move counters Chinese control of lithium, nickel, and rare earth markets, crucial for electric vehicles, technology, and defense. The bill would create a strategic resilience reserve managed by a 7-member board appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Minerals could be stockpiled, sold for defense or industry, and profits reinvested to sustain the fund. Allied nations also could participate. Senator Janine Shahin said the reserve will insulate the U.S. from foreign threats while supporting the economy. Verizon says it resolved a widespread outage that left customers across the country without cell service. A network outage affects hundreds of thousands of wireless Verizon customers for much of the day yesterday. Verizon acknowledged the issue in a social media post earlier in the day. It says some of its wireless services were down, leaving many customers without access to voice and data services. Reports of interrupted service came in from major cities, including New York and Dallas. Down Detector, which reports on service outages, said it received more than 2 million reports related to the Verizon service disruption. Late last night, Verizon said hours-long outage had been resolved. The cause was not revealed. Verizon, in a statement, apologized and said it let its customers down. The company added it plans to give customers account credits, with details coming soon. Elon Musk's AI company has imposed limits on its chatbot's image editing capabilities that follows concerns that XAI was being misused to generate explicit non-consensual images. Here are the details.
Elon Musk's XAI has imposed image editing restrictions on all users of its Grok AI chatbot. The artificial intelligence company made the announcement late Wednesday. It comes after concerns grew when the service produced sexualized images. Governments and regulators from Europe to Asia have cracked down on sexually explicit content made by Grok. They've imposed bans and demanded safeguards. XAI said in an X post they have implemented technological measures to stop Grok from allowing the editing of images of real people in revealing clothing. It added the restriction applies to all users, including paid subscribers. Billionaire Musk owns XAI, which in turn owns X, formerly known as Twitter. California's governor and attorney general said they were demanding answers from XAI earlier Wednesday. And British media regulator Ofcom said Thursday its formal investigation into X would continue over Grok, although it welcomed the company's policy change.
A morbidly named app has climbed to the top of China's App Store, becoming the #1 paid download. It's called Are You Dead? The app is designed to help people living alone by making sure someone checks on them every single day. And as more Chinese citizens choose to live by themselves, the app is growing in popularity. Host of China Insider, David Zhang, gives us his insight.
The current Chinese society is very interesting. You see many cases even around you. You have a Chinese couple, they might often be on their phones rather than engaging with each other in real social settings. So this internet culture of things in China is quite prominent. And in fact, a lot of people have grown to be so closed off after COVID, especially, that they rather engage through internet apps and whatnot. So checking in for them may not be a phone call, but it could actually be a click of a button. The app also serves an alternative purpose. Actually, if you think about it, there's a lot of talks of young people gone missing in China, that they've been harvested for their organs randomly, and even disappearing. So this app can also serve in the benefits of that to track your loved ones and their whereabouts, which is actually something very serious right now.
The app, known internationally as Dimumu, lets users tap a large check-in button once a day to confirm they're okay. However, if they don't check in for 2 straight days, the app automatically sends a message to a registered emergency contact, urging them to check on the user. The app, released in May last year under the Chinese name Silima, meaning Are You Dead? It costs just $1 and has quickly gone viral. Its rise in popularity reflects a broader social shift in China. More young people are choosing to stay single, marry later, or live alone. Meanwhile, a growing number of elderly are living without nearby family support. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, single-person households in China made up nearly 20% of all homes in 2024. That's up from less than 8% 2 decades ago. Chinese state-run media estimates there could be around 200 million one-person households by 2030. Developers say they plan to expand the app's features to serve the elderly. They're a key demographic given that more than 20% of China's population is already over the age of 60. While many commentators have praised the app's purpose, others criticized its name, especially the reference to death. There have been reports suggesting the company will change the app's name in China following pushback. The app's growing popularity highlights a loneliness epidemic across China, one that continues to deepen.
If you want to see more exclusive China news and in-depth analysis, tune in to China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD. A construction accident on a road near Thailand's capital, Bangkok, was reported today. 2 people were killed when a construction crane fell on the road below. It comes just 24 hours after another crane fell on a moving passenger train in the country's northeast, killing at least 32 people. The regional rail network aims to link China with Southeast Asia under Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. The main contractor for the project is Italian Thai Development, while the Chinese company was responsible for the project's design and construction supervision. Italian Thai Development is also the lead contractor on the highway project where today's deadly accident occurred. Public outrage has intensified because the company was previously a lead contractor on the state audit building project in Bangkok, which collapsed during construction last March during a powerful earthquake centered in Burma, killing about 100 people. Authorities have since indicted 23 individuals and companies, including the company's president and the local director of China Railway No. 10, the project's joint venture partner. The Detroit Auto Show is underway. Car enthusiasts are getting a glimpse of the latest rides in Motor City. Stay tuned for more news after this.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
War Secretary Pete Hegseth is meeting with Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi at the Pentagon today. The meeting will focus on security situation in the Indo-Pacific region. This is the fourth meeting between the two officials, including phone talks since Koizumi took office last October. Hours before the meeting, Hegseth and Koizumi had an early morning exercise session at an Army base in Arlington, Virginia. They were seen pushing and pulling weights, doing push-ups, and rowing along with troops. Koizumi said earlier this week in Hawaii that he wants like-minded nations in the Indo-Pacific to link their defense efforts. He didn't name any adversarial nations, but stressed that the region faces a crisis due to military coercion. He urged allies and partners in the region, including the US, Australia, South Korea, India, and the Philippines, to confront the challenge ahead. A SpaceX capsule carrying a 4-member crew splashed down safely today in the Pacific Ocean off California. A medical condition affecting one of the astronauts forced an emergency return to Earth.
SpaceX Dragon, copy concurs, splashdown and mains are cut. SpaceX Dragon, it's so good to be home. With deep gratitude to the teams who got us there and back.
NASA announced a plan to bring all 4 members of Crew 11 home a few weeks ahead of schedule last week. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman said one of the astronauts required immediate medical attention on the ground. The space agency has not identified which of the 4 crew members was affected and didn't describe the nature of the issue.
We did make a decision prior to today, a couple of days earlier, that we were bringing the crew to a medical facility in the San Diego, off the San Diego area. And so the crew will stay there. They'll stay there overnight. And we expect to bring the crew back to Houston on Friday, obviously pending the medical.
The Detroit Auto Show is getting underway in Motor City ahead of its public opening. The media got a glimpse of the latest rides and a chance to take them for a drive. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the hottest wheels on display.
On Saturday, the annual Detroit Auto Show opens to the public. Chairman Todd Zott said the event is about new rides in the iconic American city.
There is only one Motor City, a show that's uniquely Detroit. And behind me you see some great Detroit metal.
A range of new rides are on display. But it's not just an auto show. Zott says visitors have the opportunity to take a test drive.
We've got over 41 brands here to look at, and you can experience the cars. You can hear the tires squealing here in the background. Those are our 4 test tracks. We have test rides. Last year we gave 100,000 test rides here in Huntington Place.
The 2025 Detroit Auto Show drew 275,000 attendees. This year, visitors can get a peek at new rides by Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Ford, GMC, Jeep, and many more.
So when it comes to technology, our show reflects what's going on in the industry, at a consumer level. So there's lots of EVs here, there's a changing landscape. We have EVs, we have hybrids, we have combustion engine vehicles.
The Detroit Auto Show runs through January 25th. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Some European countries are sending soldiers to Greenland. What the troops are scheduled to achieve on the island as President Trump warns about common adversaries like China. More news after this break.